Is jail time mandatory if you haven't filed your taxes for years? Death Chose Merely says, I'm an Uber driver. I haven't filed in about 7 years. Everywhere I look, I keep hearing that you can go to prison for failure to file. I know it's not an excuse, but I have no idea how, and I can't really afford a CPA or anything. I'm still pretty much in poverty. I just want to know, because if prison is the outcome, I got to start preparing myself mentally and figuring out what the next step is when I get out. First thing I would say you should do, Death Chose Merely, is start acclimating your palate to the kind of food that you will be consuming in prison, kind of like Tom in Succession.
My prison consultant, this is kind of what the food is like inside. I'm in training. How's your omelet?
So that's step one. And no, I'm kidding, dude. Like, you're not going to go to jail because you didn't report your like 30K of Uber earnings for 7 years. Okay, it's not going to happen. All right, watch. I mean, theoretically, it is a crime, right? It is at least a misdemeanor, right? You can watch my video. Will you go to jail for not filing your taxes? But just the resources that have to be spent by the government on a criminal investigation and prosecution are immense, and probably more than the tax liability you would owe anyway for your Uber earnings, especially after you take your deductions, especially your standard mileage deduction. If you take standard mileage, right? Or, if you don't, your actual vehicle expenses, if it's higher than standard mileage, that would wipe out a lot of your tax liability. Okay? So no, you're not going to go to jail. Listen, for those of you out there who have not filed your taxes in several years, listen to me. The IRS doesn't want you, for the vast majority of you, the IRS doesn't want you to go to prison. They want you to be in compliance. They want you to catch up on your unfiled returns to the extent required. There's a 6-year rule that I've spoken about in other videos. And then they want you to keep earning income, right? And generating taxes for the Treasury, right? Which you wouldn't really be doing in jail, right? And file your tax returns going forward and pay your taxes like a model tax-paying citizen. That's what the government wants. Okay, so for those of you out there who might be scared, right, to come clean because you haven't filed in several years, don't be scared. Okay, we help literally hundreds of people a year who have not filed in 3, 6, 10, whatever, how many years, discreetly get back in the system and in compliance and into a resolution on any resulting tax debt. Okay, and it could be, probably not if you're self-employed like the Uber driver, but it could be, right, if you're a W-2 person who gets taxes taken out of your paycheck, the government actually owes you money, but you'll lose that money if you don't file your return within 3 years of the original due date of the return. That's a refund statute of limitations. Okay, so don't be scared. For the vast majority of people who are behind on their taxes, the government does not want incarceration. It wants compliance. Okay, and realistically, for our friend here, you say, you can't afford a CPA, fine. Okay, I'm not going to try to pitch you here, right? Choice Tax Relief Services, even though we help people in this situation every day. Realistically, watch my video on how to do your own Schedule C. Okay, because that's where you're going to report your Uber driver earnings. Okay, you're going to get your 1099 from Uber, right? Put that as the gross on line 1 on Schedule C. Correct me if I'm wrong, Uber drivers, but I think the 1099 from Uber is like your gross earnings before Uber takes its cut. And then you would put like Uber's cut as an other expense, or like or maybe as a commission or something, right? You would put Uber's cut. That's a valid deduction, right? And then you take your your big expense as a driver is your auto expense, right? The easy way is just take your standard mileage, multiply the number of miles you drove for Uber during the year, multiply that by the standard mileage rate, and that will just go on your auto expense line, right? There is an actual expense method which you allocate the percentage of miles you drove for your Uber business over the percentage of miles you drove total during the year, including for personal purposes. And you multiply that by your actual expenses for the vehicle, your actual what you spend on gas, actually what you spend on insurance, actually what you spend on maintenance, actually what you spend on repairs, and plus a depreciation deduction too. And if that's more than the standard mileage, you would take that. Okay. Yeah, but maybe I should create a whole separate video for how to do a Schedule C for an Uber driver, but or maybe one of my staff could. That'd be fun. Yeah, that's where I would start. And lucky for you, I've linked the video for you to my how to do a Schedule C, right? That I recorded at the upper left-hand corner of the screen for your education and enjoyment. I have also my whole playlist about tax credits and deductions and stuff on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Actually, no, let's do the playlist for the unfiled tax returns. Okay. All right. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.